Okay, I'm here today with Jeff Parr, who's our current county sheriff and who is running for re-election this year.
Yes, sir.
And would you give me a little information about, your history and your family background and that kind of thing real quick?
Sure. I was raised here in Stafford County, and my wife Sherry was also raised here in Stafford County. We have 3 children. Kellen will be a senior. Kira, my daughter, will be in 8th grade, and then I have another son that'll be in 3rd grade. His name's Creed. We chose to stay here after getting married, mainly because we like the small town atmosphere, the rural that Stafford County gives us, and we want to raise our children here, and that's why we stay.
Good, healthy environment.
Yes, sir.
Now, you've been in the sheriff's department for quite a long time.
Yes, I started in 1985 as a deputy, and then in 1987 I was promoted to undersheriff, and I ran the very first time in 1992. So I began my sheriff career in 1993, so it's been 15 and a half years.
It's quite a long time now. I've done a lot of research, and I see that we don't have the kind of crime problem that you see in the large cities, and I know part of that is because we're rural, but I'm sure a lot of it's because of enforcement.
Well, I appreciate that. That's one thing that I've always tried to push my guys to do, which they do a very good job of it now. We do a lot of patrolling on the township roads and on county roads. We patrol the smaller cities that don't have law enforcement agencies. We try to go through there a couple times a night, and we try to go through there during the day as much as we can. And my thoughts on that are, if we're out there, we can help deter all sorts of crimes, but most of the time, your burglaries and your narcotics crimes, I think by us being present, it deters that.
I'm certain of that. The visibility is a big thing.
Yes, it is.
Now, how large of a staff do you have?
Well, I have an undersheriff and 2 deputies and myself. And then in the 911 center, I have 5 full-time dispatchers and 1 part-time civil process server. And we have, I apologize, I can't give you an amount of papers right now, but we deliver a lot of civil process papers every month.
Oh yeah,
and Bill Kelch does that for me, and he keeps pretty busy.
Now, exactly what is if you were going to say, the job description of a county sheriff?
Well, I would say, obviously, number 1 is my job is to protect and serve the people of this county, which I think I do a good job of. I'm also in charge of the 911 center. I have to make sure that we're up to snuff on all the rules and regulations that constantly change for the 911 center. I actually think that changes more often than the state statutes and other laws do. I work accidents, I work theft cases, burglaries, narcotics cases. All of us basically have to do everything that a larger department has other divisions doing. They have detectives in most surrounding counties. We don't have that. We have to work the case ourselves, and from the first to the end of it. I have to make sure our civil process is taken care of, and those laws also change pretty constantly. And juvenile laws are always changing. I have to keep track of that. I have to change policies. There's probably many things I'm not thinking of, but
oh, I'm sure. I know it's a much more complex job than you have time to explain to us here, but just keeping up and keeping your employees abreast of what's going on and constant training is certainly a handful in itself.
Yes, and I would suppose a lot of folks in Stafford County don't realize that law enforcement officers have to have 40 hours of annual training a year. So in a small department where all 4 of us have to get 40 hours of training, it's tough to do. We can't all go at the same time.
No, that's about what, about 4 months of lost time or
Right.
downtime for each individual, and with no larger than you are, that puts a burden on the others.
That's correct.
Now, I noticed several times you mentioned narcotics, and I know I've done a lot of research, and it seems like the biggest problem that we have out here and could have is of course, the methamphetamines, and I know statistically I'm seeing indicators that show that the vast majority of it that's distributed through the country is done in rural areas in Missouri and in Kansas.
That's correct. And that's one of the problems here in Stafford County is, you know, it's no secret to the bad guys that there's only 4 of us also. And it is, you know, it's sparsely populated enough in areas that they can be in and out of a shelter belt or a barn in 2 to 3 hours, and we find the evidence of it, or a farmer generally finds the evidence of it, could be 3 days, 3 weeks later. So they can move around pretty mobile with this meth labs. The worst part for us, I think, I mean, like I said, we try to go out and do a lot of patrolling to deter it. But with just 4 of us, it's hard for us to set up surveillance on anything, because if we get called, we have to go to an accident, and you can't run a surveillance like that. I mean, you can't just stay a little while and leave and come back, because you're not going to get done what you're trying to accomplish. A couple of things that I have done recently, and I think it has helped. We've always worked well with the surrounding counties, but we actually started working more together on the narcotics problem, because what we discovered is the same people are in Stafford County, they are also in Reno County, Pratt County, Barton County, and they just kind of float around. Well, we can share information with each other, and it gets us a lot more evidence so that we can get search warrants to stop these meth labs. And in the last 10 months, we've seized 3 meth labs, and I'm trying to count here. We made, out of the 3 labs, we've made 10 arrests. We have 9 convictions. We have 1 that's awaiting trial, and we have 2 that we have warrants on. They've absconded, that have relations to the meth labs. So, and all of those labs, we had assistance with the local police departments and Reno County on 2 of them.
Wonderful.
So I think that's going to help, just using their, I mean, they have a lot more assets than we do, and they're offering them to us to utilize, so we're utilizing them.
Certainly, that's a good thing. Now, let me ask you one more question. Like I said, most of us out here are pretty peaceable kind of folks.
Right.
What is it we can do as citizens to help you folks do your job better?
Well, and I've said this for years, some of my best tools are the citizens' eyes and ears. You know, I can't be everywhere, nor can my officers, but if people see something they think's not right, call us. We have someone that will respond anytime. So that'd be the most helpful. And I'm kind of glad you brought that up. Just recently, I have implemented a Crime Stoppers for Stafford County, and that is designed, or my intention was, I think that it will help, especially on the narcotics end of it. People don't have to give their name. As a matter of fact, I don't want their name, because if they give it, they're not eligible for a reward. But I think people will be more apt to call in if they know they don't have to actually get involved as far as court goes. So I'm hoping that will help.
Now, I of course moved here from a large city, and when you live in a large city, there are occasions when you know you're by a meth lab because they stink.
Right.
And of course, they're toxic. The chemicals they use are toxic, and you guys have to have some hazmat as well. Right. Is that something that people should maybe be aware of? And can you explain maybe some of the smells that people might get by wind?
Yeah, probably the most common smell is going to be an ether type smell if they're actually cooking at that time. And there's some people call it a chemical smell, which isn't quite like ether, but at a certain point during the making of meth, there is a chemical type smell. I'm trying to think of maybe like a almost like a fuel smell, like a Coleman fuel smell. Also anhydrous, which everybody knows they use anhydrous. If you smell the anhydrous in a place you don't think it should be, that's a good indicator also.
Good times to call then.
Yes, that would be an excellent time to call, and don't go in there if you suspect it's in a building, because that stuff can burn your lungs. I know police officers who have lost lung capacity, the air capacity in their lungs because of it. So you need to avoid that. And actually I have an officer in my department trained in hazmat so that we can at least tear down small labs. And St. John Police Department did have someone trained, and I believe they're going to train someone else.
Fantastic. Now, is there anything else you'd like to give us for information today?
I would just like to thank the citizens of Stafford County for allowing me to be their sheriff for 15.5 years, and I would appreciate their support in the future, and I will give 100% just like I always have.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Thank you.